Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm really excited to show off this video for you guys, this deck for you guys. Pretty much going to be outlining the future of Black-Green Rock in Pioneer, with of course the new news of Liliana of the Veil being reprinted into Dominaria United, and some other cards that I'm going to be showing off that got spoiled earlier. And so I'm really excited for this to just show off this kind of theory type of deck that I've been brewing up lately. And so basically going to go right into the video. Liliana, of course, I'm going to try 4 of right away. I feel like the card is just obviously bonkers. You know, its history, at least in Modern, has been pretty lackluster as of late, I would say. But of course, you know, Liliana of the Veil was a staple in Modern for just so long. And so, of course, in Pioneer, a downgraded format, it's going to be very strong. Of course, if you're not familiar with her, 3 mana, 3 loyalty planeswalker, +1, each player discards a card, -2, target player sacks a creature, and then -6 does her sacrifice type of thing. So for this deck, I kind of wanted to go through a few other decks, a few older Modern decks, in fact, to try to gain, or can you kind of gauge a kind of area where we want to try to fit Liliana in, where she fits in a, you know, type of deck that utilizes her advantages and her disadvantages, or at least tries to strengthens her disadvantages to really get the most out of her, and just to try to make an overall cohesive deck that is good against the meta as is, and how it'll be after Dominaria. And so to do that, I'm going to be reviewing some really old Modern rock builds. This one is one that Reed Duke had in, let's see what year this was released, 2015? Oh, 2018, okay, so actually not that old. This was around the time when Assassin's Trophy was first brought into the format, or, you know, into Magic. It was first printed. And in Modern right now, I think there was just kind of Control. There's still Phoenix around. There were a few other decks like Hollow One, and then of course other mid-range decks and Control decks. And so in this video, Reed kind of goes over, obviously, you know, the prolific rock player Reed Duke goes over his, you know, this kind of like custom built rock deck that he did, kind of focused around, we see a lot of graveyard hate with these Nihil spell bombs. Kind of interesting to see. A lot of people speculating right now with Liliana of the Veil in Pioneer are saying that the +1 is really bad against Greasefang and really bad against Phoenix. However, it seems as though we kind of could take some inspiration from this build, or, you know, Reed's build, of how he has these main deck Nihil spell bombs, obviously the Scavenging Oozes, obviously Graveyard Trespasser is a card that's printed now that we could consider, kind of to, I guess, try to strengthen that disadvantage of the card parity in the discard, and how certain decks can take advantage of that. So it is important to acknowledge that, of course, Liliana is very exciting. There are some disadvantages to her, especially with that +1, where, you know, Phoenix and Greasefang are very popular in the format right now. You know, Phoenix being very, very popular for a longer amount of time. And so we have to acknowledge those types of weaknesses that she could have, despite her being just an overall very powerful mid-range card. And so we see in Reed's build that he has 23 lands, 4 of them being Treetop Village. Obviously the 4 Liliana the Last Hope as well. It's kind of hard to obviously rate this in terms of how it relates to Pioneer, because, you know, this type of Modern deck, there are obviously other cards that aren't legal, like Maelstrom Pulse, Inquisition, Dark Confidant, those types of things. So it's hard to rate it as best as we can in relation to Pioneer, or how Pioneer will be. But I think that it's kind of a really good basis to base our understanding off of, in order to gauge how the overall archetype will function, rather than just looking at Liliana of the Veil and like slotting it into just a random Black-Green Rock build, or say like a Rakdos mid-range build. I think going back in time really offers us a better insight of how the certain cards correlate with each other. You know, of course, we have Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, of course. We could kind of relate Tarmogoyf to Grimflayer. Obviously, we already have Scavenging Ooze, and then I have a replacement for Dark Confidant that you'll be seeing pretty soon. And so there are overlaps that we can make, but obviously we also have to consider that Pioneer right now is a much different format than how Modern was in this video in 2018. So I like kind of going back in time to these types of videos. It's kind of to gain a basis of understanding, to really figure out how black-green rock archetypes functioned in the past and how we could apply those kind of fundamental rules into the future and into the present. And now going back to my build, trying to relate that back to Reed Duke's build. Obviously there are a lot of overlaps. We still have the Lilianas, we have the trackers, the scoozes, some of the 1 mana discard effects and interaction. I really have been liking KO Diamond's split of 3 decay, 3 trophy in the 2-drop removal spot. He's also been playing 3 scoos and then 2 underdog and 2 ranger class, I believe. And so I'm not sure how ranger class really goes all that well with Liliana, because to try to gain the most advantage out of Liliana's plus, we really want to try to gain some card advantage out of that and some possible graveyard interactions, because obviously the discarding those cards goes to the graveyard. So Tenacious Underdog kind of fits that spot perfectly, where if it's in the graveyard, that's okay, and it could gain us advantage to kind of break the card parity that Liliana has with her +1. And same thing with this, this is not Knight of the Ebon Legion, this is going to be Evolved Sleeper, which is going to be this card. This is also a Dominaria United card that got spoiled recently, not today, but a few weeks ago, I'm pretty sure, or a couple weeks ago. This is kind of an interesting card I really want to try out in Black-Green Rock. It grows, it's a mana sink, which is very good in terms of flooding out, just going into the late game. And then once it gets to be a Phyrexian, it can get bigger, kind of like a Tarmogoyf, or I guess more of like a Scavenging Ooze type effect, and then you could draw cards with it. So it kind of gets around the card parity of Liliana, and it's just very good overall. And so looking back at the deck, obviously these knights are going to be the Evolved Sleepers, because it's just not legal right now. So going back to Liliana, she is obviously a great card, a very kind of resource denial oriented card, where her +1 and her -2 are just so impactful in the game and denies your opponents of resources. And with the +1, it denies herself of resources, but with the aforementioned effects of Tenacious Underdog and the Evolved Sleepers, we could kind of get around that. Same thing goes with Grimflayer, not Grimflayer, Tireless Tracker, where it's just a very value-oriented card that gets around Liliana's +1, and works obviously very well with her, being able to sack the clues, discard extra lands to her, that type of thing. Other than that, Liliana has pretty interesting effects with obviously Delirium, so Grimflayer gets a lot better with that. We don't have to play anything like Treacherous Blessing or maybe more Soul Guide Lanterns to get around or to kind of boost the Delirium effect. We have seen cards like Vessel of Nascency played as well, and so we don't have to play those types of kind of iffy cards. And so with Liliana, we gain more of an advantage of just being able to play overall good cards and have Grimflayer be delirious a lot of the time without having to put too many resources or too many specific cards into the deck to make it really well or to make it really good. Other than that, in terms of the lands, kind of iffy on the lands right now. Obviously playing 23, I think that's okay. Could be playing 24 because these trackers are pretty much 4-drops. You're pretty much never going to be playing tracker on turn 3 with only 3 lands. With that being said though, I do like just trying to test out 3 lands because we do have a lot of card advantage with the Evolved Sleepers being printed. The Tenacious Underdogs can get us card advantage. Grimflayer can get us card selection that could help with the land count, and obviously the trackers could be good, getting extra lands or helping with flooding in the opposite scenario. So I feel like it's kind of interesting how you want to choose your land base or your mana base. I know KO Diamonds has been recently playing Deathcap Glade and Darkboar Pathway, which could be considerations as well. However, I just kind of want to keep it simple, have a pretty good density of basic lands. We're playing 6 right now, just to facilitate the Fabled Passages and the Field of Ruins, just because I feel like Field of Ruin is going to be really good in the format with all the man lands, all the utility lands in the format, and Fabled Passage is probably the only land that I'm kind of on the fence about, just because we're only playing practically 4 4-drops, and so I'm not sure how relevant Fabled Passage is going to be. That's why I put these cards in the 1-drop slot, because you cannot really do anything with them on turn 1. Other than that, as far as the sideboard goes, this is pretty stock as it relates to how KO Diamonds is building his rock builds. If you ever notice, I've been basing a lot of this stuff off of how KO Diamonds, is building his rock build, because he's been having pretty good success with the rock lately. And so, things to note, I like the Weathered Rootstones and Extinction Events against Mono Green. I think that is still going to be pretty good in the format. Maybe you can consider replacing one of the Runestones with the Grafdigger's Cage. If Liliana is going to be very popular in the format, which I'm guessing she is, Graveyard Hate can be more attractive. And so it may be worthwhile to kind of play more things like Grafdigger's Cage. Maybe instead of the Stamping Spur, we could play an extra Lantern, things like that. Even though we do have the 1 Lantern main deck and the 3 Skoos in the main. Other than that, for the sideboard, pretty straightforward. Go Blanks are great, Duress is great. Sorin is kind of like the kind of card that you can kind of change based on the meta. I like it against midrange and control. You could even bring it in against aggro, because the 2/3 lifelink is really good. Besides that, though, it's really kind of all I got for today. I'm obviously really excited for Liliana of the Veil. I hope you guys are too. Liliana is obviously a card that's been so good in a bunch of, pretty much all rock decks in Modern, and I guess in Standard when it was printed. You had a lot of Jund decks with, Olivia Voldaren, those types of things. And so I'm really excited to play with her. Hopefully she... I've noticed on Card Hoarder she's all sold out, so hopefully with her printing and the new set she gets a bit cheaper. Same thing with Evolved Sleeper. But I'm just really excited for this deck. I think that Liliana of the Veil is going to be better in Black-Green than Rakdos, because Rakdos already has a lot of 3-drops, and it's kind of hard to slot her in. You kind of have to take away some Sorns, some Chandras, and it's kind of have to. I feel like you're gonna have to build the deck a different way for Rakdos, whereas in Black-Green, I feel like Liliana just slots in perfectly. We already have so much premium removal. I think Trophy and Decay are probably the 2 most premium removal slots in the format right now, just because Decay gets around Graveyard Trespasser very nicely, and Trophy is obviously just all around a great card, with a lot of players not playing that many basics in their decks nowadays. And so having that access to green, I think, really changed up the format, or kind of the archetype, how you want to build this deck. Scavenging Ooze works great alongside Liliana, with your opponent possibly discarding creatures to Scavenging Ooze, that type of thing. I love Tireless Tracker and Kalidas with her. Just overall, really excited for this deck. Really excited for Liliana. There's going to be a lot of brewing involved. You could definitely watch out for me. Going to be trying to build a lot of decks with her. Try to find the perfect deck, perfect rock deck to really orient her, orient the archetype around her, just because I feel like she's going to be such a nice cornerstone to the deck, to specifically Black-Green instead of Rakdos, or 3-color decks like Jund or Abzan. Maybe even we could test some Orzhov decks with her as well. I think 2 colors is going to be where I want to be at in the format, where I think a lot of decks are going to be able to rely on Liliana the best. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Obviously, would love to hear from you guys of how you think about the deck, how you think about Liliana, and how you feel about Evolved Sleeper, just because it's kind of an underexplored card, I feel like, right now, and not too many people are talking about that card, obviously, with Liliana being Spoiled today, there's not much to talk about the sleeper. So yeah, give me your guys' ideas. The sideboard is kind of just what I copied from KO Diamonds, so leave some ideas for that. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm really hyped for Liliana. Hope you guys are too, and I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks for watching.